So we will take a look at another approach called role-playing dimension. Since we cannot create more than one active relationship at a time between the tables, okay, we end up creating inactive relationship. In order to activate the inactive relationship, so I had used a DAX function, built-in function called use relationship, and then I wrapped that function with the calculate function in order to activate the inactive relationship temporarily. That one will get activated till the computation is over or the calculation is over. So is there any other alternative approach is available? That is where we have something called role-playing dimension comes into picture. Okay. So what is role-playing dimension? A single dimension plays a multiple role. So a dimension that plays the role of multiple dimensions is called role-playing dimension in the data warehousing. This is not very specific to Power BI. Which one is role-playing dimension? This is one of the concepts that is available as part of the data warehousing. Okay. Okay, so now what we will do is, okay, the role-playing concept is an universal data modeling technique. It is not specific to Power BI. You can use same dimension for creating multiple relationships to your fact table. Got it? So with this, we can create. So in this case, I'll just show you how we can use the role-playing dimension. For example, I just go to the table here. I just click on, look here. So this is a dim date. I believe that all of you are familiar with the dim date, right? How I created it. This is a very simple one. I just created with only two columns, but this column will get generated when you pass the min and max here. So I'm going to just duplicate this table one more time. So what I do is, look here, you cannot simply do copy paste. Okay, you cannot do that. See, the one option is you can go to the transform data. Since it is, see, in this case, I intentionally went here. Okay. Can you see the dim date table here? Sales fact, we can see the sales fact, we can see the dim product, we can see the dim location. We cannot see dim date because it's a calculated column. You cannot see the calculated table. Sorry, this is a calculated table. You cannot see it in your Power Query editor. So had it displayed as part of your Power Query editor, what we can do is you can write, you can, for example, if you want to create a copy of this table, I right click on it, and then I have some option called duplicate. When I do duplicate, what will happen is it will simply create duplicate of the same table. Since the dim date is not available here, so we need to use some other technique. So why should I duplicate dim date table? That is what I said, the same dimension. For example, in this case, dim date is the dimension. I just take the duplicate of this table and then I rename it. Okay, I rename with some other name so that we should be able to understand later point in time when we open the report. Okay, this table and this table are different, but the column names, data, everything is same. Okay, so that if I create one more table, if I create a relationship between these two tables, okay, for example, dim date, and I call this a ship date, but the column, data, everything is same in that dimension. So in that case, what will happen is if I create a relationship between the date and ship date in this table, this is the one I'm talking about. One second. Look at date and ship date, right? So for this, I'm going, since I create as another table, and if I create the relationship directly between date and ship date, that will be an active relationship. In that case, you don't need an inactive relationship. That is what I'm trying to say. I just move this up. Okay, so okay, I just collapse this one to reduce the space or to increase the space. Okay, next what I do is look here. I just want to create the duplicate of this one. I just go here. Okay, I just go here and under modeling tab. So what I do is I click on the new table. Shift date. What I do is there is a DAX function called all. Okay, and I just pass this table dim date as an argument to this. And look here, this is the one I'm talking about. So dim date on the right side, right? That is the one. I just pass this an argument to a function called all. So now what will happen? This all function will helps us to copy the content of this table data into this one. So in simple term, it helps us to create a duplicate of the dim date table. I just press enter. Look here, I can, so now the shift date table got created. It is a duplicate of my dim date table, but only the table name is different. I just renamed it. Whatever the data that are available, okay, what are the columns, the rows that were available as for a dim date, we copied it into shift date using all function. Okay, this is one way of duplicating the table. Now, if you see that we got the shift date here, and here what I do is now, what relationship exists between these two tables, the inactive relationship. To check that, you need to keep the cursor on top of this line. So now in both the table, we could see that the columns, the date and shift date got highlighted. But the relationship between dim date and date, so date and shift date is inactive relationship, because we cannot create more than one active relationship between the table. Hence, when I created the second relationship, the date and shift date, it became inactive. What I do is, in this case, I'm going to delete the relationship between these two. Okay, before that, in order to use the DAX function to enable or to activate the inactive relationship temporarily till the computation is over, still, right, the relation should be there. Okay, this is mandatory. Though it is inactive, the link should be there. Okay, without this link, if you use the DAX function, still it will not work. The link should exist, right? So only then you can activate this inactive to active using the DAX function use relationship. Okay, now what I do is there any other way I can use it instead of using a DAX function to activate this activate this inactive relationship? Is there any other alternatives approaches available? Yes, that is available. Look here, I just delete this relationship between these two tables. So look here, this is my date column. And if I select this here, the format is general date. And if you click on the shift date is long date format. Make sure that we are using the same date format here. And I just select the long date. Now, if I create, okay, now it has been set correctly. Okay, shift date column. Look here. Sorry, the date column in this table got set with this format. Fine. See, the date format in this table and this table should be same. For example, shift date and date should be in the same format. Okay, fine. That we have done this. The next step is I'm going to drag and drop date with shift date. So this is, yeah, using this approach, right? We landed up having only the active relationship between the tables. Can you see any inactive relationship? No, right? We don't see any inactive relationship. All are active here. Okay, all are active here. Fine. So now if I go to the report canvas and if I create a report like this, 1 second, I just, so look here, this visual became, it generated some error, something wrong with, because we have removed the inactive relationship between dim date and sales fact. Since there was no relationship, right, it develops some error. And when I click on the fix this, I can see only the quarter one, because the quarter one belongs to which table? The dimension table. But it is, since there is a, there is no relationship exists between the dim date and sales fact, the values are not displayed here from the sales fact table. So what we did, we created something called role playing dimension. The same table we duplicated, but we just renamed it for our understanding. And then we have created the relationship between the date and ship date, between these table. But whereas here the date and order date having the relationship. Okay, so this is how we overcame the having overcame by creating inactive relationship. Okay, now I just remove the date quarter from here. Okay, sales fact table, and here I don't, yeah, I have the ship date column here. Sorry, ship date, what I do is, first of all, there is an issue with the data here. Ship date is a not the data type, right? So there is some problem here. No, ship date is date data type, right? Okay, fine. And okay, let me just go here. Date data type. Okay, so in this case, okay, let me do one thing. Sorry, not this ship date. We have created separate table, right? Ship date table. So here I need to take, for example, here I just take month. Okay, here I did not create quarter, so that's the problem. Okay, I just use the month here, and okay, sales amount, right? Sales amount and month. In this case, I'll use the date hierarchy. And here, okay. Here it should be available. In this, I should have taken it from here. Okay, now I got it. So what I do is I will just drag and drop the quarter here. Now what I do is, in this case, this column comes from quarter, and in this one, and what is the sales amount here? Okay, sales, sorry, not this one. Sales amount, I just drag and drop it here. See, 5792 quarter 3 and quarter 6128. So this visual, look here, when you select this visual, on the right side you can see it, the columns that were used in which table, right? We can see it. The sales fact table, I've taken the sales amount, and then in the ship date dimension, which I created it recently, right, just a while back, from there I just drag and drop the quarter here, because we are using ship date tables date column to filter the sales fact table. I've picked up the quarter from this table and then sales amount from this table. And this one is order date. So in this case, dim date, the date column, and then the order date column got linked, isn't it? So and in that case, what happens is the dim date tables date column filters the sales amount in a sales fact table. Instead of using the DAX function, we can use like this. But the challenge here is you cannot combine these two things. Okay, you cannot combine these two. For example, I want to put this one here. so that if I rename it as sales by ship date, sales amount by ship date, and sales amount by order date, I can rename it. But if I put it here, it will cause some problem because you cannot do that. So when you use the DAX function, you can drag and drop the DAX measure into this one so that you can see the sales amount by ship date, sales amount by order date. You can make it as part of single table. But with role playing dimension, you cannot make a single. But still, right? It is doing the correct thing. It is filtering it correctly. It is not same, right? Both of them are different. And if you go and look at it once again here, so we just copied this dim date and then we renamed it. So what we are doing, the same dimension, this single dimension plays plays the role of multiple dimension. Okay, so this the same quarter here, and same quarter from here, it plays multiple dimension, plays the role of multiple dimension. Hence, we call it a role playing dimension. So in this case, the dim date is playing the role of order date, whereas the ship date table, in the ship date table, sorry, the ship date table plays the ship date in some scenarios, right? So we don't have to have the inactive relationship. Okay. But now the question is, okay, if I have 4 or 5 date columns in this, in that case, we end up creating we are duplicating 5 copies, right? Or 4 copies, the original plus 4 copies. You just copy paste this and you rename the table. For example, I have a due date column. I just simply copy this table, copy this table's entire content, another table, and then I rename it. So due date. So what will happen is as the number of date columns increases or more, obviously we'll end up with having more, the duplicate of multiple tables. So you end up with having more number of tables in your dimension tables. In this case, we hardly have, we had 4 tables. By duplicating one table, it will not, we cannot say we have too many models in our data model. And if you have multiple date columns, for each date column, if you create separate date table like this, you will end up having more number of tables in your data model. Okay, but now, so see, since the date dimension table have very less number of records. See, maximum, let's you have 5 years data. 5 into 365. Let's say even if you say 400 days, right? 5 into 400, maximum 2000 records only you will have it. So duplicating this less volume of the table, right? It will not consume too much of memory, but there is some kind of maintenance over it. Okay, so you need to so we have you, as the number of tables increase, there will be some kind of maintenance over it. Okay, even if any one of the table fails, right, or it get deleted, it will have an impact. Okay, so now you understood there are 2 approaches are available. One is the active and inactive relationship, and other one is role playing dimension. Okay, it is up to you. Okay? Again, it depends on your customers, right? They say no, we don't want to have multiple duplicates of the table. You can just create only one date table, dim date, and then what you do is create more than one relationship between dim date table and sales fact table. And then let's even if you have the inactive relationship, you can go ahead with the measure, create a measure and use the use relationship function, temporarily activate. That is good instead of having the duplicate here. Or if you think having more than one relationship requires us to write more number of measures, you can do it like this. Okay, so how did I duplicate this one? Using all function. Look here, if you click on the ship date table, look here, you can see that ship date, all function I used it. and the existing dimension dim date, I pass this in argument. Okay, hence the dim date table got copied into shift date. Got it? I just collapsed this one. Fine. Hope you understood what is the role-playing dimension with this demo. Next, we have a simple review question. Here, a dimension that can filter related facts differently is called what? What is the answer for this? A dimension that can filter related facts differently is called what? That is what called as a role-playing dimension. What type of stores details about, what type of table stores details about business, and that is what your dimension table. Because the dimension table, look here, this is this is the dimension: dim location, dim date, and dim product, including the ship date. These are all dimension table. For example, I wanted to view the sales amount by the dimension location. You have a separate table, right? This dimension location dimension holds the location name also. Whereas if you see here, only location key is there in this table, but we don't have the location name. In order to get the location name, we need to join these two tables. That's where the relationship, the link comes into picture. Once you create the relationship between these two tables using the common key, location key, we should be able to get the location name from this table. Okay. So hence this is called your dimension table. So the product table is a dimension. The dimension table will hold or the store details about the business entities. What do you mean by business entities? In this case, it gives me the detail about the location key, which is nothing but the location name. Similarly, product. So the product dimension will have the product name. But here you don't have the product name in the sales fact table, because the sales fact table will have the key columns from all the dimension tables, and along with that you will have the facts. What are the facts? The fact is profit, quantity, sales amount. Got it? Next, we will take a look at the date table. Okay, so we know the date table, right? So we have seen how we can create a date table using a DAX function called calendar. Okay, calendar function, using which we can create the date table. Look here, dim date, right? This is a the ship date. These two are date table. So do I need to have a separate date table along with the business tables like location, product, sales fact? Is it mandatory to have a date table? Yes. If you wanted to do filtering, okay, or if you want to make time-based analysis, like for like year-on-year sales, and what is the sales in current quarter and previous quarter, if you want to compare it, right? So you need to have the date column in the data set, right? So in that case, you need to have a dedicated table for dim date. And with this, in the previous session also, I shown you how to create the date table. So we have some calendar function. You need to pass the start date and end date as an argument to your calendar table. Now the question is, if I specify some date, if I use some odd code, let's say 2018 or 19, instead of hard coding, right? Hard coding is simply specifying the value as it is, 1-1-2019, year 2019. If you specify that, it is not a good practice. Why it is not a good practice? Because you are, let's say in this case, the sales fact table, it's a transaction table. Every day customers will come order the product. Some customers, they cancel the product. The sales fact table will have the transaction detail in it. Customers will order products, they will they remove they will cancel the orders, and the order fact table has daily transaction data in it. Okay, so in that case, if you hard code the value here 1-1 and max date is something like end date, start date, end date, If you specify some definitive end date, 1 Jan 2022. So what about Feb 2022 and August 2022, September 22, after 1st January 2022, but we are still the data went into your order sales fact table, right? So for that date also needs to be captured here, right? For that purpose only we are using minimum and maximum. When did we start our business? The very first day which we got the first order, that order date we take it. Minimum of order date, that gives you the first day when we got the first order, okay, received the first order. So max one will give you when was the last transaction happened, the recent transaction. Okay, by using smartly, by using min function, we are able to pass the order date. So that order date, in this case you will get the start date, in this case you will get the most recent date. If you specify, instead of specifying max of sales fact order date, you can specify the date itself, but that will become a static. For example, 1/1/2022. So this date table will have data from let's say 1/1 Jan 2019 to Jan 1/1 2022 only. So what about the rest of the month's date? That will not get stored here, right? Instead of specifying the value itself, we are using min and max function smartly to get the recent order date and the first order date. Got it? So now the question is, okay, why should I create a calendar table? Yes, as I told you, if you want to perform month on month sales analysis, year on year, or week on week, or day on day, you need to have a separate table. Okay. But if you don't create the date table, right? So what will happen is the Power BI behind the scene, it creates the automatic date tables. Automatically, it creates the date tables behind the scene. For example, in my case, in the order date table, okay, sorry, sales fact table, here I have something order date and ship date. Let's assume that we have two more date columns, due date and some other date. For each date column, Power BI, it creates the date column behind the scene. You can't even see the table. The date table created by Power BI, you cannot see it. Okay, it is always good practice, instead of using the automatic tables or the tables, date tables, get created with Power BI automatically. It is not a good practice using that, because in the case of sales fact table, you have 3 or 5 date columns are there. For each date column, Power BI creates the date tables behind the scene. You can't even see that table, and also in that table you will not have month or week day level or day level sales. You cannot see. Only the default date table will have only these 4 columns: year, quarter, month, day. Okay, and if you wanted to have something like week, that week is not available here. When you create a custom table like dim date, you can create as many columns as well. For example, you have something called weekdays, and then a week number, right? Week number, day of week. Okay, day of week will give you the week number. Okay, let's say if I specify 10 September 22, what is the week day here? So let's say Monday is week one, weekday number one, and Tuesday is weekday number two, and today is 6, right? So it will give you the week day as 6. Okay. If you wanted to have the month in terms of text, Jan, Feb month, or if you want to have the week, right, a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday in text, that is not available as part of your the automatic date table that was created by Power BI. That's the reason why we create a custom table. When you create the custom table like dim date, you can you can have more number of columns: year, quarter, month, week, day, or month by name, something there. You can give, you can create it with some meaningful column here. Hope you understood the difference between the table created automatically by Power BI and also I explained you why we need to create a date table explicitly. This is the example, dim date. So dim date, we have used a function called calendar function. The intro, they'll ask you, how do you create the date table? Do you have the date table? Yes, we have the date dimension table in our project. So in that project, so the next question is, how did you create that date dimension table? We have used the calendar function, the DAX function, by passing the start date and end date. We are able to create the date dimension table. Got it? And then you can still, like, you have something like year function. Yes, not this. Year, it shows something else. It is showing some. Okay, 1 second. I just. Okay, this is not getting closed. Okay, so you need to select the appropriate table, right? So I just selected, some other table, dim date, and when I still it should show. Look here, year. So in this table, I have used the function called year, and I pass this first column as an argument. What is the first column? Date. So date is, if you specify date, that is not on which table, which date, right? Which column. So dim date table, and the column is date. If I pass it as an argument here to year function, it retrieves only the year. And similarly, when I click on this one, the month function extract only the month from this table. This is how we can create our custom table. Okay, if you don't create the custom date table, still, date table will get created automatically behind the scene by Power BI. We don't want the Power BI to create the date table because it is not flexible. For example, if you wanted to see week on week sales, what is current week sales, what is my last week sales, if you want to compare it, I don't have a column called week. Or if I want to, create a chart, which should show in the x-axis Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, each day what is the sales. So in the x-axis, I want the text, the week, day, name, like Monday, Tuesday. So you will not have these custom columns available as part of your automatic table created by Power BI. That is the reason why we are creating, the table, separate table for dim date. We are not relying on the automatic date table created by Power BI. So you have something called options and settings. Somewhere it should be there, the automatic table. Okay. So when you unselect it, the automatic date table will not get created behind the scene. Visual options, filtering experience. Okay, in this version, I think the latest version, it is not available. It should be available. Auto detect, type deduction, time look here, auto date time. When you unselect it, the automatic table will not get created. So in that case, when you unselect it, you tell Power BI, hey, you don't create any date table behind the scene for each date column in my data set. For example, in sales fact, I have two date columns are there. For this, it will create two different date table automatically. When you unselect it, you are telling them to Power BI, hey, you don't create any automatic date table. We create our own. That is what. And when you click on OK, that's it. So in this case, I'm going to leave it as it is. Okay, I just click on OK. That's all. Now we understood, how to disable the automatic date table creation with Power BI. So how to create the date table on your own. See, once you create, see in this case, we have created the dim date table. For example, for you people to, refresh your memory. Look here, I'm going to create another column as part of the dim date table, dim date dimension table. Okay, date dimension. Instead of saying dim date, we use some meaningful name, date dimension. Okay, so here what I do is I just say, sorry, new column. Here's something called weekday, and what is the date? You just type date, and that date is held as part of the dim date table. You need to pass this argument. See, this is the date column. I mentioned it here. Okay, to get the weekday. Look here, 3rd March, right? So 3rd March is which day of the week? The 4th day of the week. Okay, that is what it tells us. This is how you can create, the columns, additional columns. So week, day, week on week, if they want to see the sales performance, right? You can do it. And another column I'm going to create. So you have some week number. And if I scroll down here, you will find that you don't have to type it. So this is 3rd March, week number is 10. Okay. So what do you mean by week number 10? 3rd March, right? So that means how many number of weeks were there before 3rd March? January month we have 4, February month we have 4 months, 8, sorry, 4 weeks. And 3rd March, maybe, right, in, January, February 2021, you have 9 weeks. And, 3rd March 2021, you are in week number is 10. Which week, we made this sales, and which weekday? Is this, Monday or Tuesday or Wednesday or Thursday? Right? This is kind of Thursday, okay? Something like that. So you can, extract something like this. For example, if you wanted to create the day, I want to have the day column. I want to compare the day to day. Day is also available there. There is something called day. It gives me the day, right? So it's Monday, Tuesday, or okay. The difference between these two are, which weekday is that? Okay, and this is just a day here. Look here, what I do is I just use a format function. Here's something called format function, and here if you say comma quote, if you say dd, something like that. Dd. Okay, I need to specify the day name. Super, right? It gives me, the format function gives me the day in text. Okay, so Monday is considered as a 1, and Tuesday is considered 2, and Wednesday is considered as 3. Okay, so now you understood what is, what are the functions that are available So now, if your manager asks you, so I want to see this week and last week sales, but in the x-axis, you need to display the weekday, weekday name. Okay, Monday, Tuesday. Instead of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, you specify this one. Okay, if you specify one more D here, and you will get the full name of the week, Wednesday. Look here, you will get something like this. Similarly, month, you can, if you specify MMMM, right? So it will display the month name. Okay, they don't want to see go by the number. Okay, it will be, if you specify the month name and day name, you'll be, you'll be in a much better position, right, to make analysis. So this is how we can create the date table. Look here, I have created 4 additional columns as per the dim date, but those 4 additional columns automatically got reflected in the ship date. Okay, because the all function returns all the values from this one. Okay, and it removes the filter and put everything here. Fine, now you understood what is date table. Okay, the now the thing is okay, so do I need to have the date table in my uh, data model? Yes, you need to have at least one date table in your model. Okay, and what is the prerequisite to create the table? Okay, so it must have a column of date data type known as the date column. The date column must contain unique values. So this column should have unique values. You are not supposed to have the duplicate values. And the date column should not contain any blank values. Here we don't have any blank values. And then date column must not have any missing dates. For example, we did not make any sales on 7th and 8th March because of Saturday, Sunday, or due to some riot. We shut down our shop 7th and 8th. So that doesn't mean in your date dimension, you should have a gap. Okay. You're not supposed to create your date column, or the date column should have, the sequence of dates. There should not be any gap here. For example, 8th and March, if you remove it, it will not work. Okay, you need to keep this in mind. In the case of date dimension, the date column should have unique values. It should not contain blank values. It should not have missing dates. And the date column must span full years. Year is not necessarily calendar year. Okay, date table must be marked as a date table. Once you create the date table, and you can go to the pivot here. So this is my dim date. There are 3 dots. You can, this is called your ellipse. You can just select on it, and you have something mark as date table. Okay, so that Power BI can understand, okay, these tables are date table. Okay, and I just open you something else called DAX Studio. I'll explain you later what this DAX Studio. It is open source. When time permits, you can do Googling and download this DAX Studio and install it. It will take some time to open. Fine. Hope you understood, the prerequisites to create a date table. So these are the thing, needs to be met. Rules needs to be followed, while creating the date table. Okay. What are the different approaches that are available to create date table, right? So the one is the automatic date table, okay, auto date time option. And other one is Power Query to connect to a date dimension table, and Power Query to generate a date table. So in Power Query, we can use Power Query script to generate a date table, and or DAX function like a calendar function. Okay, and DAX to clone existing date table by getting calculated table. So I have shown you how to clone. Clone means copy or duplicate the existing date table. Dim date table, I cloned it as a ship date table. Okay, that is one way of creating the date table. So in the intro, they'll ask you these questions. How did you create your date table? So you can tell them that you have calendar table function. You have used it, using which I created the table. Okay, but if you Power Query is a little bit, it requires a lot of coding thing, a lot of functions, right? You need to remember it here. Okay, but here you've seen year function, month function, weekday function, week num function, or built-in function that are available as part of DAX by creating those kind of columns or pretty simple one liner. But here you need, instead of using DAX function, you need to use Power Query related functions. Okay, so but I would suggest you go and go by the DAX function to create the date table. The simple one is the calendar function. You have something called auto date function is also available, using everywhere, right? In almost all the cases the same thing, but these are the rules, right? Thumb rule, you need to follow these thumb rules while creating the date table. That's all. Fine, hope you understood. So, okay, today we started with reviewing what is role-playing dimension, how to implement the role-playing dimension in Power BI Desktop, and also we discussed about the pros and cons of using role-playing dimension and the active and inactive relationship. Okay, and we discussed about date table, how to create a date table. Okay, and also how to clone a date table, and what is the thumb rule for creating date table, and what is the necessity of creating the date table. We discussed it.